So, when I was a kid, I used to feel a little ashamed to admit that my favorite food was pizza. I felt like it was sloppy, a little uncultured, a little too boring of a response. Like, of course I like pizza. Doesn't everybody? I felt like I needed a more unique answer. But as I've lived more years, I've continued to love pizza and I've also gained a greater appreciation for that childhood favorite food. So, let me give you some background. Pizza has roots way back in the ancient past. In an article on History Today, Alexander Lee writes that the oldest pizza was flatbread with various toppings that could be found in Egypt, Greece, and all over those Western Asian civilizations like Babylon and Persia and others. Now, the history of bread is also pretty interesting, but of course, bread is not pizza. No, for pizza, you need toppings and crucially, some kind of sauce. These days, you find all sorts of sauces on pizza, from white sauces to barbecue or even things like pesto. But what most envision when they think of pizza is a tomato based red sauce. Tomatoes, though, are not native to Europe, Asia, or Africa. So, for most of human history, at least the human history of the Eastern Hemisphere, those flatbreads might have toppings, but they couldn't quite be pizza. For pizza, you need those tomatoes. And so, by extension, you needed to go where the tomatoes were. And where were they? They were in the Western Hemisphere in North and South America. After Europeans began regularly traveling back and forth between East and West, they also brought new food ingredients with them. These included things like potatoes, corn, and squash, and crucially, tomatoes. At first, tomatoes were seen as unfit for eating and were even thought to cause death. However, around the same time those transatlantic voyages to the West were taking place, there was also a boatload of starving people in Europe. And if you are starving, you may well be willing to eat anything, even a red fruit that you think might kill you. So pizza began as a kind of food that only poor people would eat. Specifically, it was common in an Italian city called Naples. The poor in Naples began making a flatbread, spreading it with tomato sauce, and topping this creation with cheese, anchovies, and olives. The people of the city came to love this new dish, but the rich rulers of the city found it unpleasant. According to Gail Turim on History.com, Italian writers labeled these early pizzas, quote, disgusting. Now, that began to change when the king of Italy and his queen, Margherita, visited Naples. They had a French chef who made food for them, but apparently they got bored of his fancy French cooking and wanted something different. They asked for something from Naples and were brought a variety of pizzas. One of them, in particular, was to their liking, a pizza with lumps of mozzarella cheese, slices of tomato, and fresh basil leaves. To this day, that pizza is called the Margherita. Even with this development, pizza was really only popular in Naples, Italy. However, as various wars were fought in Europe in the late 1800s and early 1900s, Italians began to move somewhere they hoped would be a little more peaceful. Many ended up in New York City, where they began to make and sell pizzas. You may have heard this, but New York is still pretty famous for their pizzas. But how? How did a dish from Italy become that worldwide phenomenon? According to Rob Edelman, the big change came in the 1940s after World War II ended. Television was becoming popular in that time, and it became common for people to eat food while watching television. Unlike many other foods which require utensils like knives and forks, pizza can be eaten just with your fingers. As people spent more and more time on couches and chairs and not at a traditional dining table, finger foods became more popular, and pizza led the way. It doesn't hurt that it's covered in cheese either. So why do I feel okay now saying that pizza is one of my top 3 foods of all time? I think it really illustrates humanity. This is a food that is practically as old as civilization itself. It requires ingredients from all over the planet to make properly. No pizza better exemplifies this concept than the so-called Hawaiian pizza. Hawaiian pizza was not first created in Hawaii, but actually in Canada. According to the podcast The Anthropocene Reviewed, it was invented by a Greek man in Canada who decided to combine pineapple, an ingredient that some love and others despise, with a sort of ham and throw it on his pizza. The combination of sweet and sour and acidic made a pizza variety that is incredibly popular and almost equally controversial. Now, it is most popular in Australia, a truly global food. And I love that. Pizza, as it is now, would not be possible unless we as people are willing to take, borrow, and learn from one another. And I find that encouraging. Thanks for watching. Take care.
More what? You want more pizza? There is.